Why everything changes when you stop chasing it. Have you ever noticed that the more you chase something, the further it seems to run away from you? Like trying to grab your reflection in water, the harder you reach, the more it ripples and disappears. What if I told you that the act of chasing is what keeps the thing you want most out of reach? That there's a hidden paradox in life. What we pursue with desperation often eludes us, but what we let go of often finds its way to us in the quiet moments we least expect. This isn't just about romantic relationships or money or dreams. This is about everything: your peace, your purpose, your identity. We live in a world that worships the grind, that glorifies the chase. Hustle harder, they say. Never stop pursuing your goals. But what if the real transformation, the real magic, begins not when we chase harder, but when we stop chasing altogether? I know this sounds like a contradiction. How can you get what you want by not wanting it? Isn't that just giving up? But to understand this, we have to go deeper, much deeper. We have to ask, what is chasing really? Why do we chase? And what happens in the mind, in the soul, when we stop?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Chasing is a form of attachment. When we chase, we are saying, I am not whole without this thing. It becomes a statement about lack. We project our happiness, our fulfillment, our identity into something external, and then we run after it, believing that once we catch it, we'll finally be okay. But this belief is the trap, because no matter how fast you run, you're chasing a moving target. The goal always shifts. The standards always rise. You get the job, but now you want the promotion. You get the partner, but now you want them to change. You get the peace, but now you want it to last forever. The chase becomes endless. And in that endless pursuit, we lose ourselves. We stop living in the present moment. We stop noticing the beauty that's already here. We become fixated on the future, on what's next, on what's missing. What if the act of chasing actually pushes the thing away? Think about it. When someone is desperate for love, doesn't it often repel others? When someone is obsessed with money, don't they often make reckless choices that cost them more in the long run? The chase creates a kind of tension, a resistance. It signals fear, not trust, and the universe or reality or whatever name you give to the grand design of life tends to respond not to what we want, but to the energy with which we want it. So what happens when we stop chasing? We create space. Space for things to come to us, space for clarity, space for the right opportunities to find us, instead of us forcing the wrong ones. When we stop chasing, we shift from a state of lack to a state of presence. We stop saying, I need this to be happy, and start saying, I am okay even without it. And that shift is powerful. It's magnetic. You've probably experienced this before without realizing it. Ever notice how when you stop thinking about someone, they suddenly text you? Or how when you stop obsessing over a problem, the solution quietly appears? That's not coincidence. That's alignment. That's the universe responding to your inner state. But this doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we give up on our dreams or resign ourselves to mediocrity. No, it means we act without attachment. We move toward what we love. but we don't cling to it. We plant seeds, but we don't yank at the roots, demanding it grow faster. We show up fully, but we let go of the need to control the outcome. There's a deep wisdom in this. It's echoed in ancient philosophy from Stoicism to Taoism to Buddhism. The Stoics taught that we should focus only on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, and let go of the rest. The Taoists taught the power of wo wei, or effortless action, moving in harmony with the flow of life, not against it. The Buddhists taught about non-attachment, not as apathy, but as freedom. They all point to the same truth. When we stop chasing, we start receiving. But here's the hard part. Letting go feels terrifying. It feels like surrender, like we're giving up our power. But in reality, it's the opposite. Letting go is an act of radical trust. It's saying, I trust that what is meant for me will find me. I trust that I don't need to control everything for things to work out. That trust is strength. That trust is freedom. So let me ask you a question. What are you chasing right now? And more importantly, what are you afraid will happen if you stop? Because that fear, that's the real prison. That's what keeps you running in circles. That's what keeps you stuck. When we stop chasing, we start listening. We hear what our hearts have been trying to tell us all along. We notice what's already working. We discover that maybe, just maybe, we were never lacking anything. We were just too busy running to see it. And now, here's the twist. Sometimes, the very thing we were chasing begins to chase us. Not because we played some clever trick, not because we manipulated the universe, but because we became the kind of person who no longer needed it to be whole. And in that wholeness, we became irresistible. So again, I ask, what are you chasing? And who would you become if you stopped? The paradox of desire, how letting go gives you more than holding on ever could. Desire is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience. It moves civilizations, drives invention, fuels art, and births entire worlds of emotion, suffering, and joy. And yet, the same desire that inspires us can become the very chain that enslaves us. We are told from the moment we become aware of ourselves that to want is natural, and to pursue what we want is noble. But what if that's only half the story? What if desire, unchecked, becomes a trap? And what if the strangest thing about desire is that the more tightly we grip it, the more likely it is to slip away? We all know what it feels like to want something so badly it hurts. That burning ambition to make something of ourselves, to prove our worth, to be loved, to be seen. But have you noticed that when you need something too much, it begins to control you? That as your grip tightens, your peace erodes? It's not the desire itself that's the problem. It's the attachment to the outcome. That subtle belief that I'll only be okay when I get this. That's the seed of suffering. And strangely, it's also the reason we often repel what we want the most. Let's go deeper. Picture this. You're trying to hold water in your hand. If you cup your palm gently, the water stays. But if you squeeze too hard, it slips through your fingers. That's desire. It must be held loosely, like a bird in the palm of your hand. Too loose and it flies away. Too tight and you crush it. The paradox is this: you must want something enough to move toward it, but not so much that its absence destroys you. This is the razor's edge between passion and obsession, between creation and collapse. Desire is not the enemy. It gives life direction. But when desire becomes an identity, when it becomes a condition for your happiness, it begins to consume you. You stop acting out of joy and curiosity and start acting out of fear. The fear is a repellent, not arriving, and fear is a repellent. The universe or life or whatever name you give to the intelligence behind existence doesn't respond well to desperation. It's like a mirror reflecting your state back to you. When you approach the world saying, "I lack," it echoes back, "Yes, you do." But when you say, "I am enough," and "I choose to move forward," the world bends in your favor. This is where letting go becomes the most powerful move you can make. Not letting go of the desire itself, but letting go of the need for it to happen in a certain way, on a certain timeline, or with a certain outcome. Letting go of the belief that your worth is tied to your achievements. Letting go of the illusion of control. And here's the miracle: when you let go, you become more available to the flow of life. You stop resisting, you stop forcing, and in that space things begin to move, because you're no longer in the way. Have you ever had something come to you only after you stopped obsessing over it? That job offer, that text message, that creative breakthrough? When you finally said, "Whatever, I'm done," and moved on, suddenly it appeared. That's not magic, that's alignment. That's you stepping out of resistance and into receptivity, and it's not a trick you can fake. The universe doesn't respond to manipulation, it responds to your real energy. You can't pretend to let go just to get the thing, you have to actually release it. And that takes courage, because it means trusting that you'll be okay either way. This is hard to accept in a world that tells you to chase, to conquer, to never stop grinding. But what if the grinding is what's grinding your soul down? What if you've been taught to chase when you were always meant to attract? What if the greatest things in life are not caught, but allowed? There's a quiet power in surrender, not in passivity, but in presence. When you let go of chasing, you begin to walk with life, not behind it or ahead of it. You stop demanding and start dancing. And so the question becomes, can you want something deeply without needing it desperately? Can you move toward your dreams with open hands instead of clenched fists? Can you let go of the illusion that you must win to be worthy? Because here's the truth: letting go doesn't mean you lose. It means you're finally free. Free to enjoy the journey, free to evolve, free to receive what is meant for you, not what you forced. Sometimes the very thing you wanted shows up the moment you no longer need it. Not because you gave up, but because you gave in to trust, to timing, to the wisdom of life itself, the identity illusion. Who are you when you stop defining yourself by what you pursue? We spend so much of our lives trying to become someone. From a young age, we're asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" As if our essence can be distilled into a job title, a role, a label. And so we begin the chase, not just for things, but for identities. We chase success so we can be seen as successful. We chase relationships so we can be seen as lovable. We chase beauty, status, intellect, so we can be seen as worthy. But behind all of this is a deeper question we rarely ask. Who am I when I'm not chasing anything? Who am I when I stop defining myself by what I pursue? This is where the illusion begins to crack. Because if your sense of self is built entirely on pursuit, what happens when you stop running? The silence that follows can be terrifying. Without the chase, many people feel empty, lost. But that emptiness isn't a flaw, it's a doorway. It's the space where your real self begins to emerge. Not the self that was constructed to win approval or admiration, but the self that just is. Untouched, undistorted, whole. We live in a culture that constantly tells us to define ourselves by our goals, our achievements, our brand. But identity built on pursuit is fragile. What happens when you don't get the job? What happens when the relationship ends? What happens when the dream shifts or disappears? If who you are is tied to what you do or what you have, then your self-worth becomes conditional, unstable, always at risk. You become a hostage to outcomes, but when you stop chasing, when you stop tying your value to your pursuits, you begin to uncover a deeper layer of who you are. You realize that you're not the job, you're not the success, you're not even the failure. You're the awareness behind all of it, the witness, the constant. And from that space, you begin to live differently. You act not to prove, but to express. You create not to impress, but to connect. You love not to fill a void, but to share your overflow. There's a profound freedom in not needing to be anything other than what you already are. It allows you to move through life with a quiet confidence, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that doesn't need to. You stop performing and start participating. You stop striving to be someone and start unfolding into who you already are. But this isn't easy, because the world rewards the chase. It applauds the hustle, the ambition, the image. People may misunderstand you when you stop playing that game. They may see your stillness as laziness or your detachment as indifference, but you'll know the truth. Your peace is no longer for sale. Your identity is no longer rented out to external validation. So ask yourself, who are you without your goals, without your resume, without the story you tell others to make yourself feel important? Who are you when there's nothing left to chase, nothing left to prove? That question is not meant to strip you of purpose. It's meant to liberate you from illusion. When you stop defining yourself by what you pursue, you begin to define yourself by how you are, how you love, how you listen, how you breathe through a difficult moment without needing to escape it. You become grounded, not in what you do, but in how you exist. And that's when the real magic happens. You don't stop creating or dreaming or building, but now you're doing it from a place of wholeness, not lack. From a place of truth, not performance. And what you create from that space carries a different energy. It resonates, it heals, it lasts. The final surrender, why the life you want begins the moment you stop trying to control it. Control is the last illusion we're often willing to let go of. It gives us the comforting sense that we are the architects of every detail of our reality, that if we just plan hard enough, work long enough, anticipate every outcome, we can bend life to our will. But deep down, we know this isn't true. Life has its own rhythm, its own timing, its own intelligence, and the more we try to dominate that flow, force it, manipulate it, the more we end up exhausted, anxious, and disconnected from the very life we're trying to shape. We try to control people, outcomes, timing, even our own emotions. We script conversations in our heads, plan for futures we cannot predict, cling to certainty like a life raft. But control is brittle. It's a mask for fear. Fear that if we loosen our grip, everything will fall apart. Yet, paradoxically, it is that very grip that keeps us stuck. What if it's not falling apart that we should fear, but never allowing ourselves to fall into something greater? This surrender doesn't mean you stop making decisions. It means you trust the outcome even when it's not the one you imagined. It means you let go of needing to know how everything will unfold. You stop treating life like a problem to solve and begin experiencing it as a mystery to be lived. And here's the irony: when you finally release control, life often gives you more than you ever thought to ask for. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. Because you became a clearer channel for what is real, instead of constantly projecting your fears and expectations onto the world. You become aligned, open, receptive. So ask yourself, what are you still trying to control? Where are you gripping so tightly that you can't breathe? And what might happen if you finally let go? Maybe, just maybe, everything changes when you stop chasing it. Because at that moment, you stop being a seeker and start being a receiver. Not of what you thought you wanted, but of what was always meant for you. You stop living life as a chase and start letting life live through you. That is the final surrender, and it is the beginning of everything.